Hey guys, you're listening to Hard Ticket, coming at you this week directly from the Black Lodge. I'm Jeffrey Bogus.
And yeah, I'm stressed. Merle,
And Tristan, who's your friend there?
she's my cousin, but who doesn't she look almost exactly like Alice Plummer?
But it is Alice Palmer. Are you Alice Palmer?
She's filled with years.
Is one of them, between the two of us, who's most likely to be voted sexiest Hard Ticket host of 2026? Because I think I already know the answer.
Wow.
Well, let's get to it then. Hard Ticket starts now.
Let's rock.
Going to the movies, gonna catch a double flick. They're playing at the same time, so I guess I gotta pick. One's an awesome movie, and one's a killer flick. So let's all talk things over and do our little shtick. It's a hard ticket at the movies. Which one will you watch? Let's decide. It's a hard ticket at the movies.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to Hard Ticket, the show where we go to the movies expecting a double feature, only to find that both movies are playing at the exact same time. So, now we've got a hard ticket to choose between the two. I'm Jeff.
I'm
Bogus.
Tristan.
Oh boy.
Jeff, we're back.
Yeah, we are back. Yeah, it
This is
feels we haven't been able to get into our flow state lately.
Yeah, the last time it was just you and me was the Finding One Nemo After Another episode up in Pittsburgh. And we recorded that
Over
before
a
the
month ago?
Oscars? I think it was
Yeah.
before the Oscars. And here we're at the last Monday in April.
Yeah, all our guests hogging us.
Yeah, they were hogging us.
Can't get enough of us, guys.
Leave some for the rest of us.
Yeah. We love having guests on the show, but it's
Yeah.
also nice, especially for an episode like this. I think it's nice to go back to our sort of more
The roots.
the roots.
Yeah.
Because this is going to be a big one for us. Without further ado, I'm going to hand it off to you to introduce us to option number A.
Yeah, and the reason this is a big one for us is because our first movie is a David Lynch film.
Our first David Lynch.
Our first David Lynch. It's 1992's Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me.
Our first David Lynch.
After our first Ingmar Bergman and our first Albert Hitchcock, this is our first David Lynch. Our first David Lynch. So, which is exciting because these are like my top three directors ever. Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me is a prequel to the I think it ran 1990 to 1991
I believe you.
television series Twin Peaks, which was a phenomenon. Recently was revived. I say recently, it was almost 10 years ago now, which is insane. That's actually when I started, that's when I became a Twin Peaks fan, is when the revival was happening. Twin Peaks is Fire Walk with Me is about a girl named Laura Palmer. It's like the last 2 weeks of her life before she is violently murdered. And Twin Peaks is a show that is about the aftermath of that violent murder.
Right, so it's not a spoiler.
No, it's not a spoiler at all because Twin Peaks opens up with them discovering her body. And despite Twin Peaks being a show about the aftermath of a high schooler's murder, it's a very sort of like whimsical, warm, fuzzy show. It's got lots of good vibes. There's some dark stuff in Twin Peaks, but it never tips its hand to the point of Fire Walk with Me, the prequel, which is one of the most depressing movies ever made, maybe. Although maybe the ending kind of redeems it, because I think we're going to be talking about these two films, how they end a lot, I think, in this discussion. So that's Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me. It stars Cheryl Lee as Laura Palmer in a generational performance, one of the best. And Ray Wise as Leland Palmer, her father, and spoilers, her murderer. Without further ado, Jeff, if you would like to take option number B, what are we pairing up Fire Walk With Me with?
That's a good question, Tristan, because when you suggested this, I had never heard of option number B, actually. This is a movie premiered at the Sydney Film Festival in 2008, and then I think went like straight to DVD after a small festival run a few years later.
Really?
Yes. This is Lake Mungo, directed by Joel Anderson, starring Talia Zucker as Alice Palmer. Ooh, Palmer, there's that name again. Imagine that. So Alice is a girl who also befalls a tragic end in high school. I think she's 16 when she dies. Supposedly, she drowns in a lake or swimming in a dam, and her family sort of pieced the story together for us in a mockumentary-style film, which I don't know if I expected the whole thing to be like a mockumentary, but it absolutely is. We get to know her parents through the way they talk about her life and her death, and her brother. So mom, dad, brother, and rounding out our main cast is a psychic who they deploy because after Alice dies, strange stuff starts happening around the house. They think they see her in photographs taken by their son, and they just want to figure out what's going on. Is she real? Is she trying to talk to us? Can we move on? Or can we even move on at all? What's happening? And there are plenty of twists and turns in this movie that I did not see coming. And I had never seen this movie before. So it seemed like a big step to be putting it up against. I kind of feel like Fire Walk With Me is like a legend. Like it's sort of like a titan of a movie because it's Lynch and we're Lynch boys.
It is now a titan of a film, but when it came out, it was infamously booed and hissed at. I mean, if you need more ammunition to hate Quentin Tarantino, I think he saw this at Cannes Film Festival and said something like, "I used to love David Lynch, but now he's disappeared like so far up his ass."
Right. Yeah.
And f you, Quentin Tarantino. Like it's just more ammunition. But now, yeah, Twin Peaks: Fire Walk With Me, especially in light of The Return, in light of Lynch himself passing, this has been held up as for some his best film of a very storied career.
Whereas Mungo is definitely like a cult film in the sense that like it is a true cult film, I would say.
Yeah.
Twin Peaks used to be a little more countercultural than it is now. I think it's certainly in the zeitgeist now, especially that first season, second season as well. I think it was pretty cool when it was coming out, but there was this counterculture like, anything Twin Peaks is lame. And like, that's kind of why I think a lot of people jumped at Fire Walk With Me when it came out. But regardless, we're going to have to get into it because there's a lot to talk about and I'm excited. So without further ado, this is Twin Lakes Fire Walk With Mungo. Now let's get into the log lines. Tristan, I want you to kick us off with a summary that describes both of these movies.
Okay, so the first sentence is a famous Lynch line. A woman in trouble. Family and friends turning a blind eye to said trouble. And what will an autopsy of a Palmer girl's life reveal? It's a simple premise.
That's good.
That's it.
That's really good. Mine also simple. A Palmer girl with a bevy of mysterious secrets confronts her mortality in an epic supernatural tragedy that sends ripples through space and time.
Okay.
Is it fair to say that?
Is it fair to call it an epic? It is. There's something funny because you're talking about the twists and turns of Lake Mungo, which like I never heard someone describe it that way, but you're right. Like Twin Peaks is famous for the twists and turns.
For the melodrama as well.
The melodrama, exactly. Mm-hmm. It's like a soap opera thing. But Lake Mungo is played so much more straight and just sort of like realistic, quote unquote. But you're right; it has all these twists and turns like a melodrama,
sort of like a true crime thing.
Yeah,
which I think we talked a little bit off mic about Lake Mungo coming out before this influx, this contemporary fascination with true crime. We get it in like podcasting and Crime Con, which is like such a absurd thing that exists, but it does exist. I was super impressed when I watched Lake Mungo, man. I was super impressed by it. So,
if this gig ever runs out, if it ever runs dry, like Lake Mungo itself, we could always just switch to crime casting. That's pretty lucrative right now. So.
Right. Yeah. Everybody watch Citizen Sleuth. It's the perfect true crime movie for somebody who doesn't like true crime like myself.
But you like Lake Mungo.
I do like Lake Mungo. Yes.
You really enjoyed it.
I really enjoyed Lake Mungo. I didn't really know what to expect. And of course, I've seen Fire Walk with Me a handful of times.
Right.
Let's start with the girls.
Girls.
The Palmer girls.
The Palmer girls, yeah.
There's an emergency, sir.
My daughter Alice has gone missing. We need some.
How long ago did you last
She's
see?
in the dam. She was looked everywhere.
Children,
I can't hear.
do you know where you are?
We're on the other side of the dam. She's been missing for quite a few minutes.
Okay,
They sent someone down.
I need you to talk to me for a second.
We don't know where she is.
Will the next victim be a man or a woman?
A woman.
All right. What color hair will she have?
Blonde.
Tell me some other things about her.
She's in high school. She is sexually active. She's using drugs. She's crying out for help.
Well, damn, Cooper, that really narrows it down. You're talking about half the high school girls in America.
So Laura Palmer is like such an icon. And
Right.
when you think of Laura Palmer, you have to think of her homecoming queen portrait, which
Yeah, of course.
that's pretty good. Yeah, that's good. It sounded
Hello, Angelo Badalamenti. Are you in the room with us?
the spirit of Angelo. Oh, Angelo! You ever hear that story of Angelo Badalamenti composing the Laura Palmer theme, and David Lynch just being like, "Oh, Angelo, yeah, like that's great."
That sounds about right.
Yeah, like whenever you think of Laura Palmer, you have to think of the homecoming portrait of her. That's like the image. It bookends the end of every single Twin Peaks episode.
Right.
You see Laura Palmer, David Lynch, and Mark Frost were always sure to center Laura Palmer. And so she becomes like a symbol, like an image in the original Twin Peaks show.
She's the sun, and the whole show revolves around her.
Basically, yeah, she's an archetype. The archetype of a woman in trouble, specifically a coming of age, like a woman who is coming of age, who has found herself, immersed in a seedy underbelly and is doing drugs, is having lots of affairs, is pulling maybe some other people into her sphere of influence in a way that is corrupting, but also has been corrupted herself by, we find out later in the show, her, and spoilers for Twin Peaks, her father, who has been abusing her for years. And so she sort of becomes like this bigger than life figure in Twin Peaks, and the entire show revolves around trying to solve her murder, and they spin off so many dramas and plot lines and characters, new characters, all
Right.
kinds of stuff. You're discovering Twin Peaks through her death.
Right. There's a part of Twin Peaks that's like a soap opera, and
That's-
some of those plots. Like everybody's having an affair.
Yeah, exactly.
And everybody was in love with Laura Palmer as well.
Yeah.
It
And
was
it's like
18 or whatever.
like Twin Peaks, it feels like a send up of soap opera, but it also like embraces it wholeheartedly. Like there's no irony to it as well. Like there's an earnestness to Twin Peaks. Of course, infamously at some point in season 2, the executives, I think they were ABC executives, were really pressuring Lynch and Frost to solve the mystery. And they were, adamant that they should not have to solve the mystery until, probably the end of the show itself, because as soon as you did, it would deflate all the mystery and the tension and the drama.
This is the true tragedy of Twin Peaks,
Yeah.
actually. This is what died, because Lynch lost interest once they forced his hand and
Yes.
left the show. He came back to direct the season 2 finale, but it did not get picked up for a third season until 25 years later.
Right.
And the movie came out, and the movie got panned. And I think there were plans for follow-up movies potentially to conclude the show.
Yes.
If it did well, and it didn't. A lot of stuff is known about Twin Peaks. Like if you know Twin Peaks, you probably know the story behind it as well.
Well, but it's important to remember that like nobody wanted Lynch to go back in time and explore Laura Palmer. They wanted to see what would happen with Cooper at the end of season 2.
Right.
He gets possessed by evil Cooper and smashes his head into the mirror, says, how's Annie and all that stuff. Yeah. And so everybody wanted that for a film of Twin Peaks, but David Lynch was very much like adamant. He was like, we have to center on Laura Palmer. So this is going to be a prequel, and it's going to explore her life, and we're going to get back to the core of what Twin Peaks is even about. He felt like he had to remind people. And so it sort of became like you're saying, if the film was successful, he could do more stories. But if it wasn't, then that was just proof to him that Twin Peaks, it wasn't relevant anymore. Because if Laura Palmer wasn't relevant, Twin Peaks doesn't deserve to exist.
It's true. And you say Laura Palmer was an archetype. To me, she's almost like a handful of archetypes. And because she's not a character per se, there's a lot of different ways that the viewer's imagination can run away with Laura Palmer. That's the fun of the show, is getting to know her after she dies.
Yeah.
Because you just keep learning more and more and more about her. So the task that the movie takes on, it seems like it's setting itself up to fail. Like, how can you possibly actually create a 3-dimensional portrait of this person? Like, turn her into a character. I think maybe if it was anybody but Cheryl Lee, I don't know if they could have done it.
No.
The way that she does it, I call this one of my favorite performances of all time.
Yeah.
Is Cheryl Lee in Fire Walk with Me as Laura Palmer, because they made up some stuff as they went along with Twin Peaks, but the way that Laura Palmer coalesces in this movie, it's clear to me that somebody understood who she was the whole time, and that there was a way that she feels real. She feels so, it's a magnetic performance. Now, Lake Mungo is doing a Twin Peaks the series kind of thing.
Yes, it is. It is doing a Twin Peaks. And this is kind of what I was circling around to, where Fire Walk with Me centralizes Laura Palmer, puts her at the center of this story where she belongs and needed to be forever. Lake Mungo is more about, it's more about the family and the, honestly, the psychic, who are sort of the characters of the story, who are trying to piece together the story of Alice Palmer, trying to find out like what happened, why she felt like she was bound to die in this way, and also kind of figure out like what sort of double life she was leading, because we kind of figure out that she was leading sort of a Laura Palmer double life too, having an affair with the neighbor and his wife and all this stuff. The tragedy of Lake Mungo is that we find out by the end of the film that the film ends with all these images of Alice in the background of still shots and videos. And we're told during the course of the film that the family has pored extensively over these videos and films looking for Alice. And evidently they didn't see her, And so the tragedy of Lake Mungo becomes that it becomes about the people who were left behind after the murder or death of Alice Palmer, while she is sort of left in the background, literally in this case, as like digital noise, basically. And so there's like an existential haunting that's going on in that film versus like almost like a cosmic justice angle in Fire Walk with Me, which is very much about upholding Laura Palmer as a character. The end of the film is very bittersweet. She sees her own guardian angel come down and bless her in a way. Like, she gets to know that her story will continue to be told.
Well, she gets peace after death too.
She gets peace after death, exactly. And the peace that is afforded anybody after death in Lake Mungo, it's the family. It's the family who decide that, well, we figured out that Alice lived this weird double life, and now we know it, and we're going to move and be done with it. And we're going to take this happy, smiling picture and in our backyard of our house, and then in that window is Alice just looking out at them as they leave, Yeah,
the family certainly absolves themselves of their guilt once she passes, or their grief. Really, they're not guilty. I mean, they do feel guilty that necessarily they didn't necessarily know her. Yeah, but that sort of passes over them. And then this reading too. This is, I think, probably the most common one I've seen online too. Is that it's the layer of tragedy at Alice's invisibility, that she shows up and she was always there. And you even get a scene at the end when it turns out the psychic, his name is Ray.
Right.
He had appointments with Alice before she died, and he doesn't tell her family about it. They find out eventually. They stop talking to her for like 6 months, and then eventually some shit happens that we will get into. And they go back and they talk to him, and he has a final session with Alice's mom, June. And in the session, they basically sync up. They have the same vision. June walks into Alice's room, her empty room, and she says, I no longer see her.
Mm.
But then we cut back to the session that Alice had previously, where she describes her mother walking into her room and not seeing her, which is like, that's where, you know, the space and time portion of my logline comes in. And it really comes in when we find out that Alice, oh boy, oh, what a juicy secret we get about Alice. So the whole thing about Lake Mungo, the title of Lake Mungo, it's a dried up lake in South Wales, Australia. It's like it's a Badlands kind of place. Well, Alice goes there with some chums from school.
Yeah, that's Australian.
Yeah.
Some chums.
And it's dark, and there is cell phone footage of Alice from her classmates, but Alice lost her phone on this trip.
Right.
Now, in the cell phone footage that the family is pouring over from her friends, they see Alice burying something.
Yeah.
So they resolve to go to Lake Mungo and find what it was she was burying. They find a bag full of personal artifacts, her favorite necklace, and her cell phone. And, you know, this takes place in 2008. They're like Nokia flip phones. They're not like iPhone, like shoot a movie on this.
Oh, yeah. Super grainy footage.
So on her phone, they find a video of her confronting or discovering her bloated corpse.
Yeah.
Which we have seen at the beginning of the movie. She sees her own corpse and it like lunges at her and attacks her.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh man, I got goosebumps just talking about it.
It's the scariest thing ever.
It's super freaky.
It's so scary. Yeah, I'll talk briefly about when I first...
Dude, I got goosebumps.
Viewer beware. I when I first watched Lake Mungo, I was by myself. I was just in my room, and you know, it was nighttime. I had all the lights turned off. You know, I was watching a good little horror movie. I was doing what every horror fan does. And Lake Mungo is it's a handful of horror films since I became like an adult. I turned on the lights during the movie because I was disturbed. And it's not like there's like only really the one jump scare in the whole movie, but it's like this atmosphere of haunting, you know. And you even find out, you know, and this is like the first juicy reveal, is that the brother of Alice, who is like a big photography enthusiast, he has been faking photographs of Alice.
Right.
He's like, oh, I took this picture of the backyard and Alice was there.
He's like, it's part of my grieving.
And it looks fake. Like, it does look fake when you see it and you're like, oh, whatever, it's a movie or whatever. And then you find out later in the movie, it's fake. Like, he faked it.
Right.
And you're like, oh. And then you're like, wait, what? Like, why would this kid do that? And he's like, it's my grieving process. Like, I felt like since my mom wanted to exhume the corpse of Alice to make sure it was actually her, I had to do it to push her to
push my dad to do it.
Yeah, it's insane. Like what this family, and they're all so calm and just like normal about it. The dad, right? So the dad is like, oh, you know, after Alice died, I just went back to work and didn't even. That's Australian. That's the worst Australian accent. He just went back to work and like didn't like. He acts like he didn't even give a shit.
Yeah.
Which is like, okay, you know, he's a man. He's trying to grapple with his emotions and he's just kind of blocking them out.
Mm-hmm.
But like his coworker is just like, yeah, I thought it was pretty strange that Rick went back to the field. Sorry.
You're having a blast.
Yeah, I want to hear your Australian voice before we're done. And then you find out, you know, there's all these like archival footage of the brother with Alice. Do you get like a weird like relationship with Alice and her brother? Like there's like, maybe they're a little too close. Like, I don't know how to explain it.
I saw a theory that her brother drowned her and the bruises that he was getting on his body were like sort of, and that she shows up in some archival footage later. Like she shows up in archival footage of his birthday.
Yeah.
And it's almost like her trying to get their attention to focus on her brother, because we actually like how Alice dies does not get answered. She drowns.
She just drowns.
But the circumstances of it are just like a big.
No one knows.
Nobody knows. I mean, contrast with that with Laura Palmer, and it's like you witnessed the whole thing. I mean, it's brutal. And it's like it goes right up to the end of that movie.
It does, yeah. And then the other family member of Alice is her mother, who ends up, I think, being sort of like the central, in the way that Leland Palmer is sort of the foil to Laura. It feels like Alice's mom, because she talks about how she never had like a close relationship with her mother.
Yeah.
Alice's grandma. And she was like, I was never really able to give myself over to Alice. Like there was something holding her back from loving her completely. And that feels like a really big burden. Like she wants to find out more about her daughter, like find out why she was like depressed and why she died and everything. But she also feels like the most guilty about it all, but also is the one who's like most willing to like just like absolve her own guilt of everything.
Yes.
By the end of it. Like she's the one who has the vision, like you're saying, of like, I don't see her there anymore. She must be gone. And it's like, were they really looking for closure or did they just stop looking? And it feels like they just stopped looking by the end of the film.
It is an interesting dichotomy with Leland and the Palmer family because Leland is basically obsessed with his daughter.
Yeah.
I mean, you see it in the show too.
Yeah.
Like he's so grief stricken. He's like losing his mind. And you find out that he was the one who was not only who murdered her, but had been molesting her and taking advantage of her since she was 12 years old as possessed by Bob.
Right.
Kind of, because there's also like Leland's also like having extramarital affairs in Fire Walk with Me that point to maybe he's a little bit more guilty of a lot of this stuff than he lets on in the show.
Oh yeah. I think Leland's whole, like I don't think he's absolved of guilt.
No.
I think he is for sure to blame for what he did. But I think Lynch is also not interested in, he's not interested in alighting like humanity. Like he is, if you're going to take a spotlight to the seedy underbelly of an idyllic town like Twin Peaks, you also have to be willing to look at the humanity of monsters.
Yeah.
And Leland is a monster. I mean, he's possessed by the spirit of Bob, and Bob, his whole thing is that he wants to possess Laura Palmer, basically. But Leland himself, there are moments in Fire Walk with Me where he expresses immense guilt and shame over what he's been doing to Laura. And in the show itself, you find out that Leland was terrorized by Bob as a child. He talks about how he used to go on, like summer vacation at a lake house, and there was a man who would terrorize him. And it's pretty heavily implied that was Bob, and Bob probably abused Leland in the same way that Leland abuses Laura. So there are cycles of abuse there. In the same way that Lake Mungo is sort of hinting at this emotional gap between Alice's grandma and her mom and Alice and her mom themselves.
Yeah, the coldness.
There's a coldness there, yeah. There's a cycle going on.
Well, Alice broke the cycle.
Alice broke the cycle, but at what cost?
Her life.
I was really grateful that I had my work. And I mean, I felt really guilty about that at the time. But, I just wanted to get on with it.
Chet! Good to see you.
Gordon.
Chet, give Sam Stanley the glad hand. He's come over from Spokane.
It's a pleasure. I've heard a lot about you.
Actually, I want to ask you something about Fire Walk with Me specifically, because the bulk of it is Laura Palmer's story, the last 7 days of Laura Palmer, but not the whole, because the first 30-ish minutes of the movie focus on a not completely unrelated adventure, but something that really hinges on your knowledge of the show in order to subvert your expectations of it.
Yeah.
This prologue.
Yeah.
What is it, Meadow Farms or
something? It's
like that?
Deer Meadows.
Deer Meadows, yeah. So as a standalone movie, does this sort of like work as attached to this movie?
Does it work? No, it doesn't work. No, absolutely, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And it's funny. I've watched Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me so many times now, and I remember the first time I watched it after I'd watched the first 2 seasons of Twin Peaks, and I get into Fire Walk with Me, and I'm like, what the what the am I watching? Because Chris Isaac and who's it? Kiefer Sutherland.
Yes.
It feels very calculated to me that Lynch would cast these two guys, because I'm pretty sure they're like notorious assholes. And they're sort of like playing Dale Cooper and Albert Rosenfield, like the opposite versions
switched,
of them.
right.
Yeah, like the asshole versions of them. Like where Albert is so sharp and such a cynic, you have Stanley, who is
dope.
He is a dope, and he needs things explained to him, and he misses very obvious like social cues and stuff. And Chet Desmond is very much the opposite of Dale Cooper. He's an asshole who antagonizes. Deer Meadows is the opposite of Twin Peaks. The sheriff's department, it's like all the cheap drama that you would see in any old regular cop serial. You have like the cops arresting like prostitutes outside of a school bus and children screaming because they're pointing their guns.
You get
at
the friction
bus.
between the federal jurisdiction and the local jurisdiction,
yeah.
which obviously doesn't exist in Twin Peaks because the people at the sheriff's department are just your good old, they really want to help people.
Oh, yeah. You have that first scene in Twin Peaks, like the show, where it's like, Cooper's like, I want to make it clear with you, Truman, like sometimes we run into issues with local law enforcement. I just want you to know, like this is my jurisdiction here. And he's like, whatever we can do to help you, man. And it's like, and like that would be a source of drama for a lesser show. But for Twin Peaks, it's like, no, they get along. It's fine. And the local diner is a really nice place, actually. It has really good food. And they're not going to make like a joke about, oh, the local cuisine here sucks and we don't have any specials, like. So that opening sequence doesn't work. No, it's not meant to work. Like it really feels like it is a joke. But also like a poke in the eye of everybody who wanted Twin Peaks to be something that it wasn't. And I will say though, because I proposed this matchup, and I watched Lake Mungo first, and I was like, oh, Lake Mungo. It had been a long time since I'd seen it, and I was like, definitely getting the Laura Palmer vibes. Going into Fire Walk with Me, and you open up that first like 30-minute sequence in Deer Meadows, and I'm like, this is not going to tie into this conversation at all. Like this is totally separate. Although I guess in a way it kind of feels like Teresa Banks, who is the woman who was murdered in that 30-minute sequence. She is almost like the Alice Palmer of her story. Her death is perfunctory. Like it's just something to springboard into Laura Palmer's death.
Yeah, it's immersive in the world building sense that Lynch would honestly comment on a lot with The Return and things of that ilk. I was just curious because, we're talking about it as a movie against another movie, and it's really easy for us to get into the broader Twin Peaks conversation. But if you look at these just side by side, it's like it is very disconnected. And the movie itself probably feels a lot more disconnected because of that. And the abstractions as well. Like it's such a chaotic movie.
It's a very chaotic movie. Did you watch it with the missing pieces?
No.
Okay. I have a Criterion Collection channel now, so I got to watch it with the missing pieces for the first time since I had the actual Blu-ray, which I sold a couple of years ago. And that definitely fills in some gaps that are appreciated. There's a little bit less weirdness.
Oh, sure. And, I was just like listing the cast of Fire Walk with Me, like I list the cast of any movie when I take my notes for these episodes. And it just goes on because we're just cutting back and forth all over the place.
Oh, yeah.
It's almost like a TV showcast.
Oh, yeah, 100%. It's almost like, it's just like Lynch kind of getting back into this world and being like, it's the world that you're familiar with, but it's not the same yet because Cooper isn't there and because Laura Palmer hasn't died. So, and that's the thing about Laura Palmer. Everybody, it's obvious that she's in trouble.
Right.
And like everybody has to know it. And there's a scene in The Missing Pieces of, it's Warren Frost. It's Doc Hayward, who is, Mark Frost's father. And he is playing sort of a grandfatherly role to Laura. And he is like letting her smoke in the house and everything. And then she leaves. And it's after she finds out that Leland is the one who's been abusing her. And he just looks so sad to see her go. He knows. Like he knows. Like I became convinced watching it. I was like, okay, he knows. Who else knows? Everybody has to know. And so when we follow like all these characters in The Missing Pieces and in Fire Walk with Me, because we do see a couple of the show's cast, just sort of like bits and pieces, you really get a sense that everybody knows. And the sad part about showing Twin Peaks with Laura Palmer is that suddenly all these people that we love in the show proper,
they're complicit. Yeah.
Yeah. And he makes them complicit in it. There's a real sense of just, you are guilty watching this. And you're going to feel bad watching this in Fire Walk with Me. You made me go back and tell this story. Where it was all sort of just implication before, Lynch felt like, well, now we have to actually see it because you decided to, kill the goose that laid the golden egg, and you've deflated the drama.
That's interesting, contrasted with Alice Palmer and her family seems complicit.
Yes.
And
Oh,
she's not
100%.
even a character in her movie. They're just like, we're only focused on everybody around her. But maybe because they're on the periphery, like you just get some side interviews with some friends of hers, her boyfriend, and they're just like, I had no idea.
Oh yeah. Notice, and I thought it was funny. I was watching the movie this time, and I was like, everybody's really just kind of has the same delivery here. And I know they're trying to kind of like mimic the delivery of just like a regular man on the street kind of interviews. But I was also like, they're a little too samey. And then as the film was going on, and I became aware of like the tragedy of that everybody was overlooking, I was like, oh, it's like on purpose. Like everyone's giving these canned answers because no one actually did anything to help this poor girl.
Right.
And the first time I watched Lake Mungo and it got to that ending where you see all like the images of Alice still in the house and everything, I was just like, oh, there's sort of like a bittersweetness to it, I guess, because her family got the closure they wanted. But like she's dead. But they got to know her at the end. And now this time I'm like, oh no, they completely just gave up. They just gave up.
Yeah, the sameness does work in its favor, I would say,
Yeah.
especially as it just kind of unravels, and like their reactions to things are just like, that was disturbing.
Yeah, yeah.
Which is such an opposite to the melodrama that Lynch mines from his Twin Peaks cast.
100%. Yeah, the tones of these films are, well, the performances at least are just so the complete opposite. But it's interesting how this is like Lake Mungo is basically like, what if you did Laura Palmer, but as a true crime documentary?
A horror movie as well.
And yeah.
Legitimately, Lake Mungo is a horror movie. It makes you afraid of the dark. Made me afraid of the dark.
Mm-hmm.
And I wouldn't call Fire Walk with Me a horror movie. The subject material is horrific for sure, but it definitely is a drama with some dark fantasy. Like, I mean, you could call it a horror, but in the sense that it plays into traditional ideas of what horror is, not at all.
Not really. No, I mean, there's a couple kind of jump scares and everything, and it is horrific, but you're right. It doesn't behave in the genre and the way that you would expect most horror films to do. And we've talked about some unconventional horror films. Like I think back to like Houseu, like that's a sort of unconventional fantasy like horror film. And I think in that episode we drew parallels to Twin Peaks.
Probably, yeah, we did.
Lynch.
We definitely did.
We said it was sort of Lynchian before, Lynch had really been like made his mark. There's a funny moment in the beginning of Lake Mungo where they talk about going to the dam to identify Alice Palmer's body. And they talk about having to drive back into town backwards.
Yes.
And they replay, like they do like sort of a
reenactment.
Yeah, reenactment of a car just driving backwards at night along a country road into town. And to me, that was a very Lynchian image. Did that strike you at all? Did you think about that? That particular image is like Lynchian, or
well, the way that they shoot it is so mundane, though. What I caught on to with the imagery of Lake Mungo was the time lapse photography.
Yes,
there's a lot focused on the house, and when you watch Twin Peaks and you talk about the Black Lodge and all the surreal imagery that's going on, the wafting curtains, but there's a lot to do with electricity.
Yes,
I think that mostly gets introduced in Fire Walk with Me, and then it plays a huge part in The Return.
Yeah.
But like the images of flashing lights and the strobe and everything like that, you get the flashing lights in the time-lapse photography of the Palmer house in Lake Mungo.
Yeah.
Because, you get cars driving by, you get the stars circling around it. It becomes sort of a metaphysical location.
Yeah.
And that enriches it wholeheartedly for me too. Because what do you think of when you think of ghosts and hauntings? You think of the location, like sort of like that they're trapped. Although we don't know much about how the physics work for Alice's ghost. We know that her bloated corpse transcended time and met her up at Lake Mungo. And we even get a post-credit scene where it's still there at Lake Mungo as well.
Yeah.
So that they're like, I do feel like where Lynch deals a lot with, the light and the darkness and what's buried underneath, he kind of tackles a lot of the darkness really head on in Fire Walk with Me versus Lake Mungo, which has this true crime veneer to it, has like a really pristine, polished documentary feel. And the realities there are just as disturbing, if not more disturbing.
They're bleaker because it's like I was saying about Fire Walk with Me being like a cosmic justice kind of narrative. Like Lynch is preoccupied with the spiritual tug of war, the black and white. And something like Lake Mungo, which is satirizing in a way true crime, it's
ahead of the curve.
It's ahead of the curve. It's begging the question at the end of the film, like, okay, you got your answers. Do you feel better? And it's like, no, like I don't. Like, I don't feel better. Like for me, the ending originally when I watched it kind of deflated it a little bit in a way that hampered my appreciation of it. And now this time, I have not been able to stop thinking about that ending.
Yeah.
And thinking about how it is such a purposeful anticlimax that it is basically being like any true crime you watch, like there's no actual satisfaction or justice. There is no tug of war there. You think there is because you want answers, but the answers they don't make you feel better. They disturb you even more.
Yeah.
And that's the dichotomy, between these two films. I think back to that image in Lake Mungo, the time lapse of like, it's like a cable and like a tree and the stars overhead. And there's like this really dark, smoky looking cloud passing over. And you get like kind of that flashing light and everything. It really reminds me of just this really dark place, like the dark woods around Twin Peaks, It's disturbing.
I feel like something bad is going to happen to me. Or I feel like something bad has happened. It hasn't reached me yet, but it's on its way. And it's getting closer. And I don't feel ready. I feel like I can't do anything.
Do you think that if you were falling in space, that you would slow down after a while or go faster and faster? Faster and faster. And for a long time, you wouldn't feel anything. And then you'd burst into fire. Forever.
Maybe we can talk a little bit about the time loop thing that you brought up. You got Alice Palmer, who she feels like there's an inevitability to her death coming to her, and to the point where she actually runs into her corpse while she's on vacation at Lake Mungo. Laura Palmer, she obviously feels damned. She talks about feeling like in space, you'll just go faster and faster until you just burst into flames, that sort of thing. But there's also the recurring imagery of the ring in Fire Walk with Me, which is introduced in the film. It wasn't in the TV show or anything.
And the ring kind of marks you for death.
The ring kind of marks you for death. It sort of completes your loop. It's saying once you have that ring on, it's like, that's it. That's the end for you. That's your inevitability. It's the Ouroboros kind of thing.
Right.
And Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me being a prequel to Twin Peaks the show, there is that inevitability to it already built in to the story. So, Cooper is always urging Laura not to take the ring.
Right.
He's saying, don't take the ring, Laura, don't take the ring. And eventually when we watch The Return, Twin Peaks Season 3, the end of the season is about him trying to prevent the death of Laura Palmer, which is in essence preventing the show from happening.
Right.
And you find out that you can't do it. Like there is an inevitability to it, and you have to just sort of live with that.
Right. The inevitability of a Laura Palmer. This is the primary archetype of what Laura Palmer is. She's the girl that went missing. She's the girl that died. Inherently tragic because she was so young. Her life was taken away from her, but she still finds peace in death, which, spoilers for The Return, Cooper kind of rips away from her because she still has a miserable life. But the Laura Palmer archetype is like, it has to be cyclical because this happens all the time. You get the sense that, Lynch tackles this a lot in his movies. In Mulholland Drive, you get the actresses who are kind of merging or oscillating anywhere between like 2 and 10 different characters throughout the course of the whole movie. They don't even know their identities. And he's sort of commenting on Hollywood and how it tries to shove you into these archetypes. It wants women to be one thing or another thing or contradictory things a lot of the time. Twin Peaks, the way that the Laura Palmer character is, the way that tragic disappearances and tragic premature deaths happen all the time to women specifically. Like that is Laura Palmer is the embodiment of that tragedy. She and part of her wholesomeness, her life is out of her control. She's not exactly, when we see her as a character, she's got all the flaws of any regular old person. But she, especially across Twin Peaks, the series, embodies this wholesomeness because of her fate.
You think she's purified by her death?
She is turned into something of a symbol because of it.
That's dark. That's bleak.
It is.
It's very bleak. Do you think this is the bleakest film we've ever covered on this podcast?
Oh boy. Yeah, I had to watch these films by myself. My girlfriend wouldn't watch. She loves Twin Peaks. We watched Twin Peaks together.
Yeah.
When we started dating, I showed it to her. She was like, I can't watch Laura Palmer die with you. I'm sorry. I'm having a bad week at work. I can't sit down with you. So I watched it like one morning. I've seen it, a handful of times.
Yeah.
And then I had to watch Lake Mungo by myself because obviously in conversation with this, there's going to be some similarities. So I watched it at night in my office closet, which is like my man cave. It's like a walk-in closet with the lights dimmed.
You have red curtains in there too.
I do have red curtains in there. Yeah. And, it was so creepy. It was so creepy, man.
That's the best way to watch it.
It is. Yeah. The creepier, the better, honestly. Like when it comes to horror movies, I'm not resilient whatsoever. I don't think I even really touched on that enough when we did a month of horror movies.
Yeah, that's true. You kept saying like, that's not really our genre. Horror is way more my genre than it is your genre. I don't know. I mean, if I would say I'm like a horror hound, a gore hound, a horror nut.
Well, the type of horror that really bothers me is this kind of supernatural stuff. The stuff of the practical world, stalkers. As a man, I don't really have a deep-seated psychological fear of people that in the same way a lot of young women do.
Yeah.
That Firewalk with Me kind of reinforces.
Right.
When you get into the spiritual stuff, the demons, the ghosts, the stuff that there's this, I forget the word for it, but when you feel like you can make out a face in the dark or your brain creates a face.
Pareidolia.
Lake Mungo factors into that fear. It just hinges on it so much.
Yes. So much of the film is just zooming into really fuzzy, grainy imagery.
Yeah, yeah. They go about the house. They shoot the shit out of the house, the documentary crew. And a lot of these sequences and shots are accompanied by, somebody saying, I walked into the room and there she was standing there and she screamed at me. And, you're not seeing it, but you're hearing it and you're getting like the practical world parallel to it while it's being recounted.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is almost creepier than the actual thing because now I'm picturing it in this space that you're putting in front of me.
Oh, yeah. It shows remarkable restraint, which is something you had to commend Lake Mungo for because so many like found footage / mockumentary, and I do think there's sort of an overlap between those two labels. So many of those movies they do not show restraint. And there's always like, the like, why are they filming? Like that sort of thing. And this is a film that utilizes this format about as well as a horror film, about as well as it's ever been done, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't know a lot of mockumentaries that aren't comedies that even make much of an impression on me. Because it's kind of like, what's the point? Why tell like a drama in the way that what's the hook there? It really does feel like it came before. I know true crime has always been a thing.
Yeah.
But especially when you got your Netflix documentaries and everything. And I think Lake Mungo, it gets roped into this sort of like category of horror that nobody had seen. Although a lot of people I follow on Letterboxd had watched this movie.
Yeah, its star has kind of grown in recent years as like the cult horror film that everybody should see. Like I see it pop up in Reddit threads all the time where it's like, what's the scariest movie ever made? And lots of people say Lake Mungo, next to The Exorcist and The Shining and stuff like that.
The pretentious answers.
Well, like the legacy answers. This is a film that is truly a cult horror film. I think the budget was 1 point something million.
1.4 million, I believe.
And it made like $20,000 or something.
I barely made over 10. I mean, it depends on where you look. But again, they didn't they played it at some festivals, maybe a really small limited release.
Yeah.
But it didn't.
And Joel Anderson has hardly done anything since. He was like a script consultant on Late Night with the Devil, which is another kind of like found footage artifact film mockumentary kind of thing, which I have issues with because it doesn't behave like an artifact at a certain point. Whereas Lake Mungo, I think maybe you could potentially argue by the end of the film, you're like, what, they really didn't notice Alice Palmer like in these images? And it's like, well, I didn't notice either. And also, apparently, they weren't really looking that hard anyway. Like, that's the point.
Or they just can't see her.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe they're just turning a blind eye
You're
to
invisible to your own family, which is like the actual terrifying thing.
That's the
about
terrifying
Lake
thing.
Mungo. Yeah.
Yeah, that you'll die and no one's really gonna miss you. Like, the people who should be missing you the most are the ones who are just like aloof about it and are too scared to look inward because then they would, they'd be complicit in your death. And they are. They're absolutely like, there's no way Alice Palmer is having an affair with the neighbor who sneaks into the house at one point.
Oh, that was creepy too.
Yeah, and is like hiding in her room. Like, you see him in like some footage while the brother is faking footage of her walking in the hallway, which is like, what the is wrong with these people? And everyone's just so normal about it. They're just like, yeah, I realized it was the neighbor. Like, he was like just in the room while I was faking, trying to be my sister. Dude, I can't wrap my head around how normal they act, but they're not normal at all.
No.
And like, Lynch gives his characters so many eccentricities. Like, Sarah Palmer is like smoking 12 packs of cigarettes a day. Leland Palmer is breaking out into song and dance randomly. Laura Palmer is like gobbling like a turkey. And so like, everyone's like weird in Twin Peaks. And so you kind of feel like that's their outlet. It's like, okay, all this weird shit's going on, like good stuff and bad stuff. And our outlet is just acting like a bunch of goofballs.
Oh yeah, because the film kind of recontextualizes a lot of those, quote unquote quirks.
Yeah.
In a way that's horrifying.
Oh yeah.
Because Sarah Palmer, if the whole town knows it, that woman, holy crap.
Oh yeah.
If I had a nickel for every cigarette your mom smoked, I'd be dead.
I love that line. I always laugh when she says that because you think she's going to say something clever. She's just like, I'd be dead.
Yeah.
You like Moira Kelly as
yeah, she's my Donna.
She's my Donna too.
She's better. She plays the innocence more. I love her. I think she's got great chemistry with Cheryl Lee.
She does.
How much direct inspiration do you think Lake Mungo took away from Twin Peaks?
Well, it takes the name, obviously, like Alice Palmer, and then the premise, I think, is wholly taken from it. I really do think that it might have been as simple as Joel Anderson watching Twin Peaks and being like, what if you did this in like a true crime format?
Yeah.
Just a mockumentary. And let's play with that and make it more kind of grounded,
Yes.
But there's even like a psychic character in Lake Mungo who reminds me very much of Dr. Jacoby if you just stripped him of his eccentricities.
Well, you get the neighbor sneaking in the house too, who's having a sexual relationship with the daughter, and that's like Bob. That's like your Bob.
No, he's literally like hiding at the foot of the bed, like Bob. Like, I think there's so much, and I had gotten the Twin Peaks vibes when I first watched Lake Mungo. That's why I proposed the matchup. But then watching them, back to back in this context, I'm just like, now I'm almost like, is this a cheat? Is this like just that inspired by Fire Walk with Me and Twin Peaks in general? That have we cheated? Did we cheat, Jeff?
Well,
I'm pissed.
Well, I think, it's like what you're saying about those quirks, that there's still a universality to this whole thing. Like I said, with the cycle of women disappearing, like there is something universal about Twin Peaks. That's the universality blends into Lake Mungo because it's the same premise, but why? I mean, Twin Peaks doesn't, own the girl dying prematurely. It's just like, I think it made it so sort of epic, melodramatic, made it like entertaining in a way. It kind of, you think about it and then you think about all the Lynch explores the psychological aspect of it and externalizes it into all these like metaphysical things.
Yeah. Like, the damning thing about Twin Peaks is it makes the Who Killed Laura Palmer thing like a slogan on a t-shirt or an advertisement, and that makes it sort of gross.
Yeah.
It does. And it almost starts to become like the true crime thing that it's parodying. I think Lynch was able to do it because he was able to mine good drama out of it and always keep it centered on Laura Palmer. Like, he never did move on from Laura Palmer in the show. No matter how far it went, it still kept her in the focus. But I think there was a real danger. If the execs didn't ruin it, the fans would have, in a way. Like, Laura Palmer would have become like this object. And she wasn't. She was a person. Like, Cooper says to Albert, death has meaning here. I thought that had disappeared from this earth, but here it has meaning. Like, means something for someone to die like that. And something like Lake Mungo is really just, it's just really sharp with the way it ends. It gets me so much the way where it's just like,
it does turn it around on the audience.
how many stories do we see on the news nowadays? And it became sort of like I don't want to call it like a meme, but like people would kind of point out like, oh, another white girl died or went missing. So that person is going to get so much attention on the news compared to, queer folks or,
anybody underrepresented
folks.
in the media already.
Yeah. Or, men and stuff like the white woman who dies or goes missing and no one knows where they went. Like there is sort of like, that's a pretty popular news story to run with. Like people feel very protective of that image, not for bad reason. I mean, we should be protective of anybody, right? Who goes missing or is potentially killed. I mean, that's horrific for anybody. But there is like a trend in the news cycle where it's like those are the people who get the headlines. And so Laura Palmer being like, she was like the person, she was the headline, and everybody was following her story during the rise of sort of a sensationalist media cycle. It's the aftermath of Ted Bundy and John Wayne Gacy and all these serial killers. And I think Lynch, he did a good thing by centering it back on the victim and not on Bob. So I guess that would probably be his pushback to the worries that Laura Palmer was becoming like a prop.
Lynch is every man in Twin Peaks who goes, I loved her. Because it is every man in Twin Peaks.
Yeah, every man does. Yeah. There's like a scene in there's a scene in The Missing Pieces where it follows Dr. Jacoby and he's like calling Laura Palmer and she's so annoyed with him. She's just like, what? Because, she's making all these tapes for him in the show. And you kind of get the sense that she was kind of like...
she's doing it to pacify him.
Yeah, but then in the movie, she's just like, what? And he's like, will you make me another tape, please? Like, he's like, sounds like so pathetic. And it's like, that's her therapist? Like, no wonder the woman was like...
to an extent, the Fire Walk with Me deflates the image of Laura Palmer. And there was all this ambiguity, and now it's like, now we have answers.
Now we know,
we are seeing her relationships. We're not seeing what people said about their relationships.
She's concrete, yeah.
Right. Which I love, because I think they basically like had a shapeless form and they drew a perfect outline around it. I mean, like,
yeah,
it's perfect. And her performance is magic.
I think in an ideal world, I don't think Lynch wanted to tell the story of Fire Walk with Me. I think had Twin Peaks kept going and doing what it was doing without the interference from the executives, it would have just been, we never would have actually seen Laura Palmer in her final dying days. But I think I love it because it needed to happen after the killer was revealed. And season 2 moves on to fun.
Wyndham Earl.
Yeah, fun storylines,
Batman
mark.
And the Joker.
Yeah, literally. It needs to happen. I remember reading I can't remember if it was like a critic review or something after Fire Walk with Me premiered at Cannes. And it was like, we finally find out what Laura Palmer was like in the last week or two of her life. Turns out she was just an annoying teenage girl and I hate her. And it's like, you, what the are you serious? Like that, to show you the type of environment that Lynch released Fire Walk with Me into the world. Yeah. That's what it was. It's like people had moved on from Laura Palmer. It's like that was him needing to kind of rub their faces back into it and be like,
oh my God.
No, you don't get to move on
That's
from
so
it
funny.
And be so dismissive of it. And also, you, Quentin Tarantino.
We finally find out who Alice Palmer was, and she was an annoying ghost who wouldn't leave the house.
Oh, boo-hoo. You had an affair with your neighbor, and he recorded it, and we watched it.
And I got to take a shower.
Oh, boo-hoo, you didn't connect with your mom. It's like, can you imagine? Like, people thought that when they watched, and I get it. Like Laura Palmer in Fire Walk with Me is obviously like, she's a gray kind of character, like she has that scene where Donna comes along with her to the pink room, the most amazing soundtrack ever, by the way. And like Donna is like, she's been roofied and all this stuff, and like Laura is just like, oh, Donna, you go shot for shot with me, like trying to kind of
and that's the darkness in Laura Palmer too. That's why this movie doesn't let her off the hook for all of the
no, exactly.
And she's a manipulator with Bobby, who is also a piece of crap. I mean,
yeah. She
walked in
gets
there.
him to sell drugs and everything, and eventually Bobby has to kill a guy because he's put in that position.
Yeah, he has to. Yeah.
Well, everybody makes these choices. Like Donna chooses to go with Laura and all this stuff, and Laura also is choosing to cope with abuse through drugs and sex and all this stuff. I mean, technically choosing these
Right,
things.
as a teenager, yeah.
But you're also seeing how people are made in this way. And it's the same thing with Leland, which is, again, goes back to my point. Like, I don't think Lynch is interested in shying away from showing Leland in genuine remorse and being like, you know, please don't make me kill my daughter. Like, when he actually does it, like, there's a part of him, I mean, it tears his soul in two.
Yeah.
And I think Lynch he is saying that everybody who is a monster, who does do these things, they are hurting themselves too.
Mm-hmm.
And hurt people, Jeff.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
All right, Jeff, we've reached the end of Hard Ticket. This was great.
Hey, we're back, baby.
We're back, baby. Like, I missed this. Like, we just need to do a bunch of solo episodes this summer. When you're done with grad school,
I'm so close.
You're so close. You got like 2 weeks, kind of, week and a half, something like that. We're going on vacation with our buddy Dallas. We're going to be recording that Superman episode with him here soon. Yeah, that's right, folks. Dallas is making a comeback.
We've relegated him to one very specific role, but he loves it.
He can only talk about Batman and Superman movies. But yeah, I'm so excited for the summer. This is sort of like our last sort of hurrah before the good weather and everything. And these are kind of autumny, bad weather, gloomy kind of movies. So I feel like this is a perfect end.
Yeah, I think so.
To the season that we're in. But it's the end of Hard Ticket, and we have to make a hard decision. And I'm curious to know where your hard ticket's going to go.
I got to be honest, Tristan. I'm going to surprise myself here.
Oh my God.
I'm going to give it to Lake Mungo.
Are you really?
Yes.
Really?
I know. I really didn't know how. Like, I watched Lake Mungo. I watched it second too, and I watched it and I was like, "Ooh, I really want to give it to it, but Twin Peaks.
Yeah,
got to go with Twin Peaks because I mean, you have to, right?
Yeah.
I guess I don't, but
you don't.
But dude, I don't know. I think what I'm doing here is I'm choosing the movie I had the better watching experience with this time around, because I have seen Fire Walk with Me a bunch, and I've watched through Twin Peaks several times. Lake Mungo, it was a new movie to me, and it gave me chills. For about half of it, I had goosebumps, probably. It was legitimately scary, legitimately complex, thematically poignant, like...
Yeah.
And it really is, like, I wasn't even really thinking about true crime that much before we started talking about an hour ago. But, like, dude, it really...
It skewers it.
It skewers it before it even, like, gained popularity in the phase that we've experienced in our lifetime with streaming and Netflix and all that stuff. I am so impressed by Lake Mungo, and it's only sat with me well over the past 24 hours. To be choosing it over Fire Walk with Me, it feels like a crime, because I love David Lynch, and Fire Walk with Me is probably like maybe in my top 3 Lynch movies.
Okay.
It's up there for me. It's fantastic, but I think I want to do something a little more subversive here. I want to keep it fresh, and I want to recommend that everybody watch Lake Mungo, because it is more contentious. I mean, it's got like a 3.3 on Letterboxd, like 6.2 on IMDb.
There were a lot of Letterboxd reviews that were like, I just put on this movie when I want to go to sleep. And I'm like, okay.
What are you talking about?
Oh, boo-hoo, you died, you drowned in a lake. You're so boring, you stupid
And people who call
girl.
this movie boring, hey, I guess I kind of get it, but also that's not how I felt.
I do not think the movie's boring. I think it's methodical. And I also feel like the boring parts are like they're on purpose.
The point, yeah.
It really just feels like the point. Wow. Whoa. Wow, Jeff. Wow. That's crazy. I really thought you were going to pick Fire Walk with Me, but I could also detect some cracks because you were talking about like the opening and everything and the unevenness of the experience. And I think that's fair. I'm going to go with Fire Walk with Me for my hard ticket, but I will say I have thought more about Lake Mungo since I watched it.
Mm-hmm.
Lake Mungo is doing, I'm not going to say it's doing more, but it is doing sort of the same with less.
Right.
It's doing it with a lot less.
I'm impressed by how little it's going off of. I mean,
Yes.
you could say that it borrows heavily from Twin Peaks. I don't think, I mean, it's borrowing,
Yeah.
but I
Paying
don't know.
homage, I think.
Sure.
in a way.
Yeah. That's probably a better,
Yeah.
more accurate way.
I don't think it's ripping it off.
Like, hell no.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that. I think the exercise that it is engaging in is wholly novel and worthwhile. I think for most people, here's the thing, like I can't recommend Fire Walk with Me without you having seen Twin Peaks.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, I've shown Twin Peaks to a number of people. And there's a filter there.
Yeah.
Shown Twin Peaks to a lot of people. Most of them don't watch it. They don't like it. And which I get it. It's kind of weird, I get it. And then we get through Twin Peaks for the people who did like it. We get all the way to Twin Peaks. And then we get to season 2. And it's like, okay, we're going to skip the bad parts or what? And that's another filter. And then you get to Fire Walk with Me, which is so different from the TV show.
Yeah.
And so off-putting. And, I used to love David Lynch, but now he's got his head so far up his ass. You, Quentin Tarantino.
You can't say it enough.
Can't say it
then
enough.
you get to The Return, and it took me my second watch through to really appreciate it for what it is.
There are so many filters in place. It's like you can start someone on that first episode of Twin Peaks, and you can start 10 people. And by the end, you maybe have 3 or 4 who have stuck around for The Return.
And you guys went through, hey, fire, walk with me. You went through hell.
literally, yeah. And so, it's hard to ever just be like, you should watch Fire Walk with Me. And this is a tough movie to talk about without just talking about Twin Peaks in general.
Yes.
Which is why I'm hoping if you're listening to this episode, you've seen Twin Peaks or know the gist, and I haven't spoiled anything too big. Lake Mungo is terrific. It's gone up in my estimation. I think I rated it like a 7 out of 10, something like that.
You did, yeah.
And Twin Peaks is like a 9 out of 10 for me. So, but it's closer now. It is closer now. And I'm envious of your subversive decision.
I did it, man. Hey, it took me up until I think, and the more we talked about it over the past hour, the more I appreciated it too.
Yeah.
I feel like I've said a lot about Twin Peaks, just in life, not on this podcast.
Sure.
But we will find a way to say more. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've experienced it a lot. It is fundamental to me. That's why it feels like a betrayal a little bit to say Lake Mungo over Fire Walk with Me.
It's not a betrayal because, and I love Fire Walk with Me. I think if there was ever a term that flawed masterpiece would apply to, it is Fire Walk with Me. It is a tough film. It is a challenging film, especially that first 30 minutes. No, I'll go with Fire Walk with Me, but I think I'm happy that Lake Mungo has the representation on this ticket, even though we're not going to get to watch these movies together. So we're house divided this time.
We are. Back to formula.
Back to formula.
Well, guys, that's going to do it for us on this episode of Hard Ticket. Thank you, Jared Tadlock, for designing our brand elements, keeping our podcast looking fresh. Thank you, Aaron Griffin, for mixing and mastering our theme song, sung by yours truly in a truly awful falsetto. You can follow me on Letterboxd at Jeff Blogus, all lowercase, all one word. You can follow the podcast on Instagram and Blue Sky at Hard Ticket Pod, all lowercase, all one word. Tristan.
Yeah, follow me on Letterboxd at Tristan Moore, and you can follow me on Instagram at Tristan__less. And the email, hardticketpodcast@gmail.com.
Yeah.
Send us some more suggestions, send us some feedback. If you want a guest on the show, we got some fun collabs coming up here in the next month or two. So
We do. We're very excited for it.
Pumped.
As always, thank you guys for listening. We will see you again next week with another classic hard ticket matchup to be announced. But until then, we'll see you guys at the movies.
Sayonara, Mike.
It's a hard ticket at the movies. Which one will you watch? Let's decide. It's a hard